Right on. Yeah. So it's pretty public knowledge that you guys are a remote company. You guys have a lot of people from all over, and so I guess the way we can kick this off is kind of get a better understanding of your team, particularly the studios side of things, and how you guys go about curating everybody and all that sorts of stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, everything we really do is through Slack, right? We do a lot of Google Meets, a lot of syncs with the team to make sure that everything is oiled up. But got to give a shout out to our CMO Michael. He really keeps everything in check. And like I was saying, the developers, I mean, they've been developing games for longer than I've been alive. So it's been really cool to learn from them, and it's just all the experience in the world.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, like that was super, super intriguing to me. And your team is just stacked, and what you guys are building is epic and big time, I should say. But I'd love to kind of, for the general public, explain what you guys are up to, and how you're kind of embracing the space right now.
Everybody out there who's played a blockchain game before, most likely they didn't have a great time. Some of those earlier blockchain games, they're pretty revolutionary, don't get me wrong, but they were pretty simplistic with regards to gameplay. A couple years ago, the founders of Big Time, Ari and Thor, who were founding members over at Decentraland, decided to start their own game company. They were done with Decentraland because the DAO kind of took over, and they're like, all right, we're going to make a new game. It's going to be on chain, and it's going to be the first AAA rated game. And eventually they kind of came up with Big Time, and it's built really on three principles. One, it's totally free to play. It's never pay to win, and it's got to be the first AAA rated blockchain game. If you've seen some of our Twitch streams out there right now, they're really only exploring one world. But by the time global launch comes out, there's going to be multiple zones for people to check out with multiple types of dungeons.
Right on. And I'm actually curious about the marketplace you guys built around those NFTs, and kind of your thought process around there.
So yeah, all of our transactions are off chain. You can buy in our marketplace with fiat, credit card, crypto, whatever you want. But the really intriguing thing about our marketplace is that, as you're going along the game and you're collecting these NFTs, you're able to pull them onto any chain that you want. So you can sell them in our marketplace, or you can pull them onto Ethereum, onto Solana, and sell them on their native marketplaces as well.
So part of the reason why we came up with the Big Time Marketplace is to get users into the game who don't like NFTs. And by doing that, by building a game where it's super user friendly and it's an interface similar to what you'd see in Fortnite or some other Web 2 type game, then your player base gets a lot bigger. And it's like hardcore gamers who just want to play a game and swag out. And so, like our marketplace, among other things, you can just use a credit card to buy stuff. You don't need to have a wallet engaged, and you can kind of go direct to other people in the community. And if you happen to be one of those people who's a real NFT enthusiast, you can move it on chain, eventually, just like what Mickey said with the vault. But by doing the marketplace the way that we did, we're hoping that there's a lot more people who are going to be interested in the game and engaging in that NFT trading and ownership stuff.
And I'm gonna chime in again here. I'm curious because again, like I come from the world of RuneScape and all that sorts of stuff, and those days of kind of where you can probably just like trade skins with someone in game, right? Like there's this like nostalgic experience where you're like, oh, I like your skin, you want to trade with mine? Are you guys planning on doing the experiences, or is there already experiences where like in game users can trade skins between each other, and kind of swap easily?
Here's the thing. I can't release some of the details about the game, but what you said with in-game drops and in-game trades is like a huge cool feature of MMORPGs. We definitely talk about it a lot on the team internally. I couldn't give you a timeline for when it's going to come out, but I can tell you it's something we talk about a lot, and it's some place that we want to go.
Yeah, and we also talked about Runescape, right? We go back to saying how if this game is very successful in scalability, hype, retention, and cultural and memes, kind of like how back in Runescape, these party hats are like were like thrown, tossing around early ages, and now they're like they don't do anything, but they're like very valuable, like kind of a big like Rolex flex kind of thing. And that's what we talked about with early big time, right? Saying some of these skins could become that type of hype cultural meme and value over time.
It's kind of more of like an ethos of like how is Big Time going to stay in business. I think that's a big part of it. ignore early access period. Big Time's a free-to-play game. Free-to-play games tend to not make a lot of money from when people sign up for them. So you gotta if you're gonna have cosmetic NFTs inside of it, people gotta care about it. And if nobody plays the game, then nobody's gonna care about swagging out and upgrading a NFT. So what we really bet on in Big Time was we need to make a great game. And when you build a great game, then you can build a really big community. And that's where we put our money. And that's where we put the focus on. And when you have a very big community, a lot of players playing, then there's a lot of culture, pride, peacocking, all of that stuff will come from it. And so, even in the early days of Big Time, where did we put our first hires on? It was on game developers. Not just the guys writing the code, not just the experts on Unreal Engine, but the storytellers. There's a bunch of other cool stuff that goes on in Big Time, like comic books and stuff like that. But, more to follow on that one. But we really tried to build a culture and an immersive game. And so any person who, is a hardcore Web 2 gamer, Genshin Impact, Fortnite, whatever it is, when they want to put their toe into the Web 3 gaming environment, their first step is going to feel like Big Time. It needs to be smooth. They need to not feel like they're sketched out. And once they feel like they're having a good time checking it out, all right, I'm going to get some NFTs. I'm going to get some space. I'm going to upgrade. I'm going to do all these other cool things inside the game. So that's really how we focus on it. We really bet on making a big game that a lot of people want to play.
It's I'm curious, it's free to play, and from the process, what are the biggest difficulties you guys have maybe run into?
I want to tackle that from two different ways. I want to talk about it first from talking about the game, and then from a game development standpoint. For talking about the game and reaching out to people, the hardest thing I have personally seen is engaging with the Web 2 community, and in particular, people who don't like NFTs. I have very much personally struggled to interact with them. If you go on Reddit and you go to r/PC games or something like that, you're going to see some serious hatred towards NFTs. You're going to hear things like Ponzi scheme, criminal, immoral, unethical, evil, so on and so forth. And when we engage with those types of people who are kind of most prolific on those pages, you're like, why do you hate NFTs so much? And why do you hate blockchain games? And after a while, we kind of figured out, okay, well, their issue is less with blockchain and more the way that blockchain games have used blockchain. And there is a difference. And honestly, right off the bat, they were like, "Oh, I don't want to lose any money. It's expensive. I could get rugged." I was like, "Well, what if it's a free game? What if you just play a good game and you don't have to pay any money and you don't need to pay to level up or anything like that? Would you check it out?" And generally, very begrudgingly, they'd be like, "Yeah, I'd probably check it out, but NFTs are still dumb." And I'm like, "All right, well, okay, well, at least we got our foot in the door here." That's been hard because I think people are going to like our games, and I think there's a lot of cool benefits that come to blockchain. The second part, for a game development standpoint, what's been really challenging is making sure you get that in-game economy right and well balanced, because that's what's pretty different, right? Unreal Engine is a well-known game development platform. We have some serious experience. They know how to make an iconic game. They really do. But balancing the market economy, the NFTs, and the interact between players is a careful balancing act. And that's why we have some serious mathematicians and economists who are on our team to make sure when we put that system out there, it's good and it's enjoyable. And I think just having an economist as part of your game development team is pretty rare.
I guess the follow-up question to that would be, how do you see the trends of the gaming industry?
Yeah, there's definitely a first mover advantage. Kind of being the first AAA game with blockchain is huge, right? Just being first, you kind of set the standard for others. There's a couple ways that I see the gaming industry going. Not among the least was Unreal Engine 5 came out about a month ago. So graphics, gameplay in both games and in movies is about to get a huge step up. So that's pretty cool. So that's on a technical standpoint. The big gaming industries right now, the AAA games are really struggling with making sure that gameplay matches the hype. 2021 was a pretty brutal year for AAA games, and things tended to fall flat shortly after release. And they got to tie that to making sure that they're not so expensive that people would just prefer to play an incomplete indie game. So I think they got to balance that. I think they do have to square the NFTs and how to do that and how to get them onto console. So far, consoles have been pretty resistant to it, but I think it would be probably foolish to not take advantage of all the technological benefits that come with blockchain.
I've been a hardstuck League of Legends player for like 10 years now, and I've been tweeting about it so many times how I think that Riot Games should implement NFTs into their game rather sooner than later. Because me personally, I've spent thousands of dollars on the game so far. When I was a kid, it was the cool thing to do.
For sure. What you mentioned, like you spent thousands of dollars in a game and you haven't been able to do anything with it, and it just kind of sits in there, is one of the things that we saw at Big Time. We're like, we got to fix it.
Exactly. Especially with like I remember back in the day there was like some pretty exclusive skins within the game. I'm talking about League of Legends here that were going off for like thousands of dollars just because of how rare they were. And you'd essentially have to sell your entire account just to sell that skin to somebody. It just didn't really make sense. You'd have to give up your entire account just to, sell this one thing that you have.
I mean, I agree. Like, no, I could easily sit up here and just crap on the way like Web 2 games had like kind of mismanaged their ability to train in game assets, but ultimately they set the foundation that we're launching off of. It's what we're doing, I think, is a logical progression from what people already had. If you want to see a rudimentary version of the way our marketplace works, go to nft.bigtime.gg and you can see people already buying and selling their in-game NFTs. And there's going to be a much more advanced version of that by the actual game release. But that's basically the way the systems work.
Yeah, so first off, I love that Big Time caters toward the gamers more than the ones who are actually looking to, get into the NFTs or, earning money more. But what if you guys feel pressured to make it more P2E kind of a thing when there's more games popping up more toward the play to earn side? How would you tackle that? Like, would you try to look into it or would you stick to your roots?
I mean, there's a variety of things, and I really can't give away too many of our earlier plans. Big Time is never going to change from being free to play. I'll tell you that right now. It's just too much baked into the model, and there would be a total rebellion. And everybody, I think, if we ever went to a game where you had to pay to play it, I think everybody else would feel kind of betrayed, and they would leave the game. And I think we'd actually end up doing worse off. What I can tell you is there's going to be more to Big Time than what you have either seen or heard of so far. And it's going to keep growing, not just in the gameplay with multiple years of releases, but in other areas too, which I would love to chat about. Unfortunately, I cannot. But just know, like deep in, yes, we are a game first, but we have a pretty savvy group. This is like the same group that came up with NFT blockchain games in 2017, which was probably the first time that most people heard of like Bitcoin. And by that time, we were already we'd kind of already had like a blockchain game out for a while. So it's, I don't know. We've got some pretty innovative people in the sphere. Mickey, do you want to add on to that too?
Yeah, so as far as like shifting from, one model to another, there's really no need to, because our development team has been so great that they've created like 5 years worth of gameplay in the game. So like the user never experiences the same thing over again. So I mean, let's just pretend that like, it stops working. We're not really doing this for the financial aspect. We're doing this to build a community and to, attend to the needs of the community. So, I mean, pretend everything, goes bad. There's still 5 years right now cooked up, ready to go for the player to play. So I hope that answers your question.
Let's say this is your version one, RPG game. If you guys decide to create a version two and so on and so forth, will it be all the items used in version one will be interoperable?
So, couple things I want to hit on. First and foremost, the team is laser focused on finalizing the game for global release, and that's in about 10 or so weeks from now. And I say that not to kind of say that what you're bringing up isn't as important. I say that because if this game isn't good and people don't like it in the first couple weeks, then nobody is going to give a crap if it's interoperable later on with anything. And that's where, like, so the roadmap you're talking about, like in the long run, it's good. It's, vision, on a vision wise, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't want to do that. But if this game sucks, nobody cares. And so, like, we got to get it right. and it's not just the gameplay in multiple worlds. It's getting those things right with that in-game economy, making sure the vault works properly, because we're innovating in a lot of stuff. Like, we're doing a lot of new stuff that hasn't been done in a game before. So we've got to get it right. When you talked about, like, hey, Solana, multiple layers, some sort of super chain, it's good. Don't get me wrong. What we're focused on is, will the in-game marketplace work effectively, and are people going to be able to move it onto a couple of different types of chains right to begin with, and then eventually to become chain agnostic. That in and of itself really pushes the ball forward. So, like, I don't want to, like, dodge your question. You bring good ideas, but I want you to know, like, we're actually much more focused on, like, make the game good. It's Big Time Studios. We launched the studios with aspirations of having more games, but, like, again, nobody's going to care about all those second games if this one sucks. So I hope that answers your question.